what is Keynesian normal backwardation? This is about the commodity futures or forward market, let's say futures market. So in commodity futures market, we may be interested in comparing the spot price to futures price of different terms. So if you draw futures price on the vertical axis and the time to expiration, time to maturity of different futures contract, so the spot contract, spot price will be somewhere here, spot price, because spot contract has 0 time to maturity. The spot price is the price at which you can buy or sell immediately, so there's no term, there's no maturity for spot contract. And if there's 1 year futures contract, the contract to buy or sell something 1 year later, and you can indicate some 1 year futures price somewhere here, and say 2 year is here, and F2 is here, or maybe F3 is somewhere here. And you can, of course, plot other further points. Now the question here is, what is the typical shape of a curve like this? What is the typical relationship between spot price and futures prices of different maturity? Is it more normal to have higher future prices as we go to the right, or is it more ordinary to have declining line here? And one answer was proposed by Keynes, John Keynes, the famous economist, and he proposed that a particular pattern is expected in a situation like this. Let's think about one particular example. Let's say we are thinking of the futures market for rice. In reality, rice futures market is not very active, but let's say there is an active rice futures market. So there will be buyers and sellers in this market. Who will be the typical buyers in the rice futures market? Who will want to buy in the futures market? You can imagine perhaps the typical buyers in this market is rice farmers, seller, not buyer. So if you think about rice farmers, they grow rice and they expect to harvest rice at some point, sometime in the fall, and maybe in summer, rice farmers will be worried that if the price of rice in the fall is lower than what they expected, then they'll have less income. Of course, if price of the rice in the fall is higher, then they'll have more income, but they can reduce this risk of the fluctuating rice price, risk of fluctuating income, by getting into rice futures contracts. So if they take short position, if they take sell position, if they agree to sell rice at a specified futures price, rice farmers can get rid of the risk to their income. So in the rice futures market, there will be many rice farmers who will want to get rid of their income risk. So for rice farmers, getting into futures contract is like buying insurance. If you buy insurance, you have less uncertainty, less fluctuation in your income, so you have less risk. Similarly, rice farmers, they take the short position, they agree to sell and in the futures market. And by taking short futures position, rice farmers are removing their income risk. So for them, it's like buying insurance. Who is on the other side? Who are the typical buyer in the futures market? Farmers won't be in the buying side. They already have positive exposure to rice price risk. They don't have any reason to take long position in the rice futures market. So the buyer here would be non-farmers, so we may just call them speculator. So they don't have any reason to enter futures contract other than profit motives. Keynes suggested that in a situation like this, they are buying insurance, they are after profit. So this group of market participants are willing to take some loss because they are actually buying insurance, and to buy insurance, people are willing to pay a bit. The speculator, these market participants, they do demand profit. If they do not see profit opportunity, they will not participate in this market. So the equilibrium situation is that rice farmers expect to lose a bit, speculators expect to earn a bit. So for that situation, the relationship between the spot price and futures price should be in particular direction. The profit to the buyer of the futures contract is if the spot price in the future, some future date, let's say S1, well, let's just say as t plus 1. If the spot price at a future date turns out to be higher than futures price now, if this number is positive, this will be the profit to the speculator. So in equilibrium, the expected value to this number should be positive. And in a situation like this, speculators expect to earn profit. Rice farmers expect to lose, but they still participate because they are buying insurance in a sense. And they participate because they expect to earn profit. So if you move this term, the F to the other side, so this is the general relationship Keynes suggested should be applicable in certain commodity futures market. That is, the futures price should be lower than the expected spot price. And Keynes said that this is the natural situation, and therefore if you look at futures price and if you compare futures price to the spot price, then futures price should be lower than expected value of spot price. And if the expected value of the spot price at t plus 1 is more or less same as the current spot price, then the F will be lower than current spot price. So what Keynes suggested is normal is this declining curve in this space. That is, futures prices are lower than expected spot price, and if the expected spot price is more or less similar to the current spot price, then this will be the typical pattern you can see in the futures market, and at least that was Keynes' idea. And in the market, people call this declining futures price declining downward sloping futures curve. When they see this downward sloping futures curve, they call it backwardation. They say these futures prices are backwardated. So Keynes called this backwardation normal backwardation because according to this story, the backwardation is normal. So this pattern is often called Keynesian normal backwardation. Now this is an interesting story because this particular equation is, in a sense, rather unconventional in economics. What is more conventional in economics is that futures price should be identical, the same as the expected spot price in the future. Why do economists say these two should be identical? Because for futures market, if this happens as in this case, one side of the contract, in this case the buyers expect to earn profit, sellers expect to lose money. In general situation, if that is the case, there will be very few sellers and there will be more buyers, so the market cannot be in equilibrium. So that's the general idea in economics, that these two should be identical, because otherwise one side of the contract will not have any reason to participate in the market. Of course, in the Keynesian story, this is possible because sellers participate in the market because they are not after profit, they only want to buy insurance. So this makes sense only if the hedgers who want to buy insurance are in the one side of the market. If some of the buyers also want to buy insurance, perhaps if the buyer is a manufacturer who needs to buy a lot of rice, this manufacturer will be on the buying side. So if the insurance purchasing market participant are both sides of the contract, then you cannot have this pattern. So for Keynes' story to be valid, the insurance purchasing participant should be one side, especially seller side of the contract. And people, talk about whether such idea is valid or not. In reality, some say that doesn't make much sense because the speculator can be both sides, and some of the buyers may be participating in the market for the purpose of purchasing insurance as well. So this description, some say this description of the market is not really accurate. Another issue with the Keynesian normal backwardation is, if you look at this story, it's not clear whether this story is about so-called quantitative pressure, quantity pressure, quantity or is it about risk? Some have this idea that in the market, if there are more sellers than buyers, then price will be lower. So one interpretation of Keynesian normal backwardation idea is that this is just one version of quantity pressure. The market is not in equilibrium because there are more sellers than buyers, so the price adjusts. Or some other interprets Keynes' idea in terms of risk. Here, these people want to get rid of risk, but these speculators, they do take risk because the price, this is just expected price. Price may end up being lower than the futures price. So the buyers, the speculators get profit because they are taking extra risk in the futures market. So that's another interpretation, but for this interpretation to be valid, the sellers are not taking extra risk. It's only buyers who are taking extra risk. So either way, if you focus on this aspect of Keynes' story or this aspect of Keynes' story, the story is not, there are rooms to criticize in this Keynesian normal backwardation idea. And the empirical evidence for the Keynesian normal backwardation is mixed. Some find that the empirical patterns are consistent with the Keynesian backwardation idea, and some find that the pattern is not consistent.